All right, welcome back, guys, to episode 18 of Candid Chats with CNC. It hasn't been long since we recorded last, but Chris, what's been going on?
Oh, yes. Well, the most big exciting news is my best friend Josie, whom you have all met a couple episodes ago, finally moved here. She's actually in the process of staying on my couch, but there's just a couple like apartment details that need to be put away and everything before moving in on Monday. So she'll be moving in tomorrow officially. And then,
Exciting.
yeah, and then her husband and their little cat Frankie will be here. So excited for that. So we have just been catching up because I haven't seen her in person for a couple months. So
hmm
we've just been catching up. We went to Bob Evans this morning.
Did you like what I Snapchatted you?
Yes. No, you said that. So Colleen snapped me and said, "Are you down on the farm?" And I literally had just sent a snap to Bailey and with the caption "down on the farm."
That's hilarious.
And so I thought it was hilarious. But yeah, no, so that's what we're doing, getting ready for a busy week at work. I mentioned it in the last episode, but some folks from Ohio are coming, so I'm gonna have dinner and stuff with them. So it'll be a busy week of helping Josie and Grant move in, and then stuff with work and meeting some cool people.
Yeah, exciting.
Yeah. So what what have you had going on, Colleen?
I have been celebrating my roommate's birthday. Her birthday was on Thursday, and her parents came last weekend, so we pretty much have just been celebrating her 23rd birthday for an entire week, which has been a lot of fun. Other than that, I start work in 5 days. So I'm just trying to get everything in the house where I want it, especially my bedroom. I got like all my clothes, my closet how I wanted it yesterday. I decided I wanted to start doing my nails on my own to save money. So I did like dip nails for the first time. Just stuff like
Look
that.
nice.
Thanks. They've been on for almost 2 weeks and none of them have chipped yet. So I would say that's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah,
So
that's pretty good.
other than that, yeah, I've just been chilling, trying to get stuff done. So
Yeah. Sports wise, I would say also I'm a very happy person because we're filming this on Sunday and the Cincinnati Bengals just beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. So as a Bengals fan, it's a rough
really?
ride, but they won. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So it was a good game. Yeah, it was a good game. And it was in Pittsburgh, so like which makes it a little bit better.
Yeah,
So
interesting. Huh.
yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
And Ohio State won, which is good, but we dropped in the rankings, which I don't understand.
The Cats won. We're 4-0.
Oh, just wait, honey. It won't last long.
Yeah. We play Florida this weekend, and that's probably going to rock our world, but that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Okay, well, let's get into our topic because I think it's gonna be
yes.
interesting.
So
In
I
your
feel as if,
shirt.
yes, feel as if I have to start with this shirt. So, our topic today is astrology, which is very exciting for me because I love astrology. But I actually like was getting ready and was about to put on a shirt, and I was like, "Oh, what do I want to wear?" And I was like, I don't know why I thought about it, but I was like, "When does Mercury go into retrograde?" And I was like, "Oh, tomorrow." So Mercury is in retrograde September 17th to not the 17th, September
27.
27th, sorry, to October 18th. So my mom got me this shirt that says Mercury is in retrograde. So I feel like I'm gonna have to wear this for like the next like 3 weeks. But
Yeah.
for people that don't know what that is, let me explain really quickly. So obviously Mercury is a planet, and all of the different planets throughout astrology affect certain areas of our lives. So right now the planet Mercury is coming closer to Earth, which means that our communication is going to be lacking because Mercury is the planet that rules communication. So during this time, you're pretty much not supposed to make any major life decisions. You're not supposed to get married, sign up on a house, buy a new car, start a new job. Yikes, I am, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because communication can really lack during this time. So people usually like tend to isolate during this time. So like communication with, like relationships, your loved ones at work can really be something that you have to try harder to do during this time. And it's happening 3 times. This is the last one in 2021. So,
Fun
yes.
fact. I guess also for those that aren't super like knowledgeable or know that much about astrology, could you also give like a little bit of an overview of what exactly it is?
Yeah, so astrology is basically, in a nutshell, so astrology is it's very complex. It took me a while to, there's all these different houses and there's all these different, there's 12 zodiac signs. So, or 16, 12 or 16. I don't remember which. um, Zodiac signs. And pretty much your zodiac is based off of obviously the day you were born, so your birthday, the time you
Mhm.
were born, and the place you were born. So your astrology is based off of how the stars were aligned at that exact location, the place, the time, and the day. And that's how
Yeah.
your astrology is made up. So people's zodiacs are made up of three things. These are like the three major components that most people know about. So obviously you have your zodiac sign. So that's based off of what your personality is based off of your zodiac. Then you have your moon, which is what your emotions are based off of. And then you have your rising or ascending sign. They kind of interchangeably go hand in hand. And that is what you portray to the outside world. So that's what people would think your zodiac sign is. So it is very interesting. It's very complex. I've read a lot about it, and I think it's very interesting. I feel like people are very 50-50 about it. You either are
Yeah.
into it and kind of believe it, or you know absolutely nothing about it.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like it really blew up recently with social media, especially TikTok.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like for instance, we have a group chat, and me, Chris, and Katarina, and we send astrology stuff in it all the time.
Yeah. And I guess like we'll start out by saying like what our zodiac signs are, and then also like we'll go back in because after we say our zodiac signs, it's going to be really like interesting to share like you obviously like you, Kat, and I are like a friend group,
Mhm.
and our zodiac signs line up as a friend group,
Mhm.
and so it's very funny.
Yeah.
But my zodiac sign, I'm an Aries. I was born on March 30th,
Mhm.
and so I I I would say like I know a decent amount about astrology, not as good as Colleen at all, but I'm learning more about it. I think it's very
Yeah.
interesting. Like exactly what you said, it's complex. So it's like it's very interesting to know. And so it's
Yeah.
also like I've gotten to the point where I'm like asking like friends or like coworkers or something, like, what's your zodiac sign? And they tell me and I'm like, that makes sense. Or like, huh,
Mhm.
interesting. Like
I will
don't
say the hardest part for me was figuring out, like, learning the positive and negative traits of all of the zodiacs. That's like
yeah.
the part that's the hardest to remember.
Yeah, I would agree. So, yes, so I am a Aries. My mom is also an Aries, fun fact. Um, and then my moon sign is a Taurus, which I think is very interesting, and also to give perspective for those. And Aries is basically we're straightforward, we're helpful, we're driven within the fact of like work. Um,
Workaholics.
yes, and people have probably picked up on that. And we are like very strong within like our emotions and how we feel about things,
Mhm.
basically. Hard-headed people, aka why our animal is a ram.
Yep.
And but my moon sign is a Taurus, which I think is very interesting because I don't necessarily see it that much, but like I mean we were talking about this a little bit ago and Colleen was like, yeah.
Mhm.
And Josie was also like, yeah.
Yeah.
Which basically means that they Tauruses are calm, balanced, level-headed people um, that are oriented towards reason instead of driving into like your head too deep about
Yeah.
what you feel.
That's
So,
definitely where the rational part of your emotions come into play.
right, which it makes sense.
Mhm.
But then my ascending slash rising sign, whatever, I think is very interesting, and I don't agree with it, but like also I guess like sometimes I can see it. But it's a Gemini, which I think is very interesting because also like if you're an Aries, you don't like Geminis, and so I guess I'm having a midlife crisis. Well, who the heck am I? Identity crisis. But
Over your astrology chart.
I know because Geminis are known to have like great curiosity and without being super reserved,
Mhm.
which is interesting because I think that that's interesting also how it aligns with like Taurus. And then it also means that everything's exciting, and you're immense within like knowledge of wanting to know things and stuff like that. And so I think that's also interesting because I don't know if I really see everything as exciting.
I think
But
you try to.
I try to see the good in everything. But yeah, so that's a little bit about me. So Colleen,
Yeah.
you share.
Yeah, so I'm an Aquarius, and what's funny is my mom is actually an Aquarius, so we both are the same signs as our mothers. But the
Yeah.
difference is my mom is a January Aquarius, so we're like, I always explain it as we're the same but different. Obviously Aquarius, so we were talking about this before we started. Aquarius are the rarest of the zodiac,
Yeah.
which is cool. I like being rare, but we're the weirdest of the zodiac. We're mysterious. We're very independent, very free and adventurous people. And then my moon signs, my emotions are a Sagittarius, which I think is funny because Sagittarius, their emotions are through the roof. They're very emotionally driven people. But because I'm an Aquarius, it like balances it out. Like I do have feelings and can be emotional, but my Aquarius part of me like suppresses that down and is like, no, let's keep that at bay. And then my rising is a Scorpio, which makes total sense because my RBF is the worst, and I definitely come off as very unapproachable. I think it makes sense that my rising is a Scorpio.
Yeah, you do come off as a Scorpio.
I've had exactly. I've had so many people tell me that like I look very intimidating. I mean, I'm like 5'11" too, so that doesn't help. But I come off very intimidating. But then once they approach me and talk to me, they're like, "Oh, she's cool." And I think that's where like my Scorpio side comes into play.
Yeah, I'd agree. I also think that it's interesting because, like we mentioned, Kat. So Kat's sign is a Sagittarius,
which
so,
makes
like,
perfect sense. It makes so much sense.
It makes so much sense for her, and like a lot, like kind of like what you mentioned. A lot of our For You pages on TikTok has been like a lot of astrology stuff and everything, and it's so weird because every time that I watch one and it like is talking about like the best signs to be like a group of friends and everything, it is literally Aries, Aquarius, and Sagittarius. And I'm like, that's literally us, and it creeps me out.
Well, so this is actually something we were talking about when Kat and I were in DC with you in May, and we figured out, I think, the reason why it works so well between us is because all three of us bring something completely different to the table of our friend group. So I think we really balance each other out well.
Yeah, I agree. I think so too. And I just also I don't know. I just think it's like super interesting. And it's also like how you like, I mean, I guess like do you think that I come off as a Gemini?
I mean, that's hard because it's like what you portray to people that like, you're meeting for the first time or people that are more of like acquaintances. So it is hard for me because I've known you for so long. But yeah, I do think that you do have some Gemini tendencies. I mean, I hate Scorpios. I'm not a big Scorpio.
Right.
But I definitely portray some of those traits for sure.
Yeah. And see, like, and that's another interesting thing is like maybe like a little education lesson for everyone who isn't like super into astrology. Like Aries and Scorpios like do not get along. And so it's just also interesting because like, I mean, like obviously we're best friends, but like you come off as that kind of thing. But I think it's also like kind of what you said, like we've known each other forever. So it's kind of like navigating. I wonder what Kat's rising sign is.
I know. I was actually just thinking that. I wish we would have pulled up her chart before we started.
Let's text her. I'm gonna text her.
Yeah, we need to know what time she was born.
Yeah. But then also like something to get into also is like sometimes like thinking about like when you're in a relationship and like what zodiacs may be that. So you got a lot to say about that.
I have a lot to unpack here. So it's funny. So my parents is what I use as an example for this a lot. So my mom is an Aquarius, my dad's a Virgo. And that is like one of the top 5 like most uncompatible signs in a relationship. And my last 2 ex-boyfriends have been Virgos, and they are exes now for a reason. But it is funny because my parents do get along great. Obviously, I mean, they've been married for 25 years, but they do butt heads a lot. And I think that is why is their personalities are just like clashing. But
Mhm.
I mean, I use it as an example because, you don't have to like, oh my God, they're a Scorpio. I can't date them. Our signs don't match. Like,
Right.
definitely don't base your love life off of that or your
Right.
friendships. Don't let it,
Right.
if it's gonna work, it'll work. If it's meant to be, it'll happen. But I do think it's very interesting. Like whenever I like start talking to somebody and it gets a little bit serious, I always look up what their chart is because it helps me give insight into like, yeah, how are their emotion levels and what is their personality like? Like, I think it can be helpful. You can definitely find tools within their signs to be like, oh, okay, so they might do this if this happens, or just situational. I do think that
Mhm.
it's interesting. Um, but yeah, I've dated a lot of Virgos and I am straying away from that.
Yeah. It's also interesting because so for Aries, if you're an Aries, it's from like, what's the dates for Aries? March, I have it pulled up right here actually. March 21st to April 20th. And so my mom is on like a line between like a Pisces and an Aries, but for like, they say like they come up with who your most compatible like
Mhm.
sign would be for each sign, whatever. And so kind of like similar to what you said, like about like your parents are like completely opposite. My parents are literally literally supposed to be like in a relationship. Like so Aries, if like relationship wise, like it is suggested that the best relationships that you will have romantically are between a Leo and a Libra.
Mhm.
And so it's very interesting. And because I mean like obviously like every parent's like have their like disagreements and stuff like that, but like kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and
And
what's
so it's
really
interesting.
Yeah, and what's interesting about Aquarius, so a lot of the signs, so like for instance, like an Aries and an Aries wouldn't work. They're too
No.
bullheaded, like they would just clash too much. Work would probably just
Friendships wise too. Like
yes, yeah, because work just rules your life and it just
Mhm.
doesn't work because you don't have time for each other. So it's interesting
Right.
because Aquarius is literally the only sign where they thrive with another Aquarius, and I think that that's really interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah. Huh.
Oh.
The more you know.
Yeah, it is really cool, and it's really cool to think about, like, people, like, in your family or, like, yeah, like, our friend group. Yeah,
Mhm.
it kinda some of it makes sense of, like, "Ah, so that's why we get along so well," or, "Oh, that's why this happens when we have disagreements."
Right. I think that like it's super interesting too, like with obviously most of my learning that I have done in the past like couple months has been through TikTok. And
Mhm,
so like sometimes like I see them and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I go on like big deep dives. So like I know that like you're an Aquarius. I know that Kat is a Sagittarius. I know that Josie is an Aquarius. I know
mhm,
that's my best friend Stanley is a Virgo. And so like I'll go through like in what I know of like each person's things and then I'll see like their stuff and like kind of like try to figure it out. Kind of like what you said when you're in a
yeah,
relationship kind of thing. Like I find that and I'm like, huh, keeping that in the back of my head.
mhm.
just
Well,
just in case.
actually, Snapchat just implemented, like, a couple months ago, a new feature where
It shows.
if you fill out stuff, there's actually like you can click on the other person like in their profile, it'll say their sign, and you can click it, and
Right.
it'll actually tell you if you guys are compatible. And it's really cool because it's actually I
Really?
yeah, so I actually like read through a couple of people's like and just messed around with it, and
Yeah.
it's actually pretty in depth. I was actually like I figured it would be very surface level, but I think that the
Yeah.
wording that they use, it's very easy to understand. And they also give you like a chart at the end that's like an overview with percentages. And I think for somebody that like isn't into astrology or doesn't know much about it, it's very easy to read and understand. But it also goes in depth. It's really cool.
I'm reading it right now. I'm looking up my friend Bailey. He's also a Sagittarius, which so like obviously like we would be friends. And so I'm looking, I was like, that is
Yeah.
interesting. Hmm.
Mhm. Well, it's cool because it does it for, like, friendships, but also, like, you can do, like, romantically too. Like, I think it gives you the
Right.
option.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it pisses me off the people that don't have that turned on. So, like, everyone right now, I'm gonna need you to pause this podcast, and I'm gonna need you to help your friends out, and I'm gonna need you to go fill that part out in your settings of your Snapchat. Thanks.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting.
hmm
Huh.
And so, like, so for instance, I always go to that when I like am freshly talking to somebody, and we've been talking for a couple weeks or something. I'll always go
Yeah.
and look at that.
Yeah.
It's,
Interesting.
it's really helpful. And I like that you can click through it, and I love the graphics that they use. It's very
Yeah.
Snapchat looking.
Yeah. Interesting.
hmm Yeah, so just funny to see like social media even is like getting bigger into like outside of TikTok is getting big with astrology.
Right. I also think it's so interesting that like astrology, like how it's based on the literal time that you were born, your name, and the city that you were born, like the coordinates of the
Yep.
city.
hmm
It's so interesting.
I know, like I want to be like, who like came up with this because it's so complex. Like
Hmm.
I feel like it would have had to take a very smart individual or group of people. I don't know who, like when astrology was founded.
Right.
But yeah, I can't imagine what all went into researching and figuring it out. And they're like
Yeah.
recently they've been thinking about adding a new zodiac, and then it would throw off like all of the dates.
I don't like that.
I forget what they're gonna call it. I think it starts with an O. It's not like set in stone. I think some people are following it and some people aren't. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it would like throw off everything. Um,
Interesting.
well, this is something that my mom and I have had conversations about. So I was born at 1:40 in the morning. And I am very much a night owl. I'm not a morning person. I do, like, you can ask my roommates, I do my best work between the hours of like 8 p.m. and 2 a.m. That's when I'm the most
Hmm.
productive. That's when I'm like the most alive and most outgoing and usually the most awake. So we were going shopping the other day and we started talking about it. And I was like, I wonder if that's why I'm a night owl because I was born at 1:40 in the morning.
See, that like I've heard that before and that makes sense. But like I was born a little before 10 a.m. and I do not consider myself a morning person at all.
Yeah.
You know
I
what I
don't know. I'm
mean?
just curious. I haven't read any
Yeah.
research about it. I need to like see. I'm sure there's an article out there somewhere about it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's just interesting to think about.
It is interesting to think about.
hmm Well, and, like I was supposed to be born on the 10th, and I was born on the 11th. Because my mom did like the whole epidural and everything, so it slowed down the whole process of me being born. So I was supposed to be born at like 7 or 8 on the 10th, and like I wonder if obviously we'll never know, but it would be
Yeah.
interesting to know if there would be a difference like in
That
my sleep
that's
schedule.
true. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I was born 16 days early.
hmm
I was 16 or 17. I was supposed to be born on April 15th,
hmm
and then obviously that didn't happen. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It is interesting also,
hmm
which I think that also like kind of goes into like my zodiac sign stuff too, because like I'm like 10 days away from like 10, 11, 9 days away from like the cutoff for like Aries and Pisces.
Yes.
But it's
So
but like I was supposed to be born late more into it. You know
yeah.
what I
So
mean?
I wanted to actually explain that. So it's called like when you're on the cusp.
Mhm.
So for instance, I could let's say you're born in January. You're 2 days into being an Aquarius, but
Mhm.
Capricorn is right before that. So you could be an Aquarius because you were born during that time, but since you're right on the cutoff right there, you could have a lot of Capricorn personality traits and tendencies.
Mhm. Which is
So
how Josie is.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's like interesting too. So yeah, so there's a lot of people that are
Yeah.
right on that mark that like you're kind of split. You have both.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. It is interesting.
well, and then like this, what you were just saying about being born made me think of this. So yeah, you were born 16 days early, which made you an Aries.
Hmm.
Let's
I
say
was supposed to be an
everything
Aries either way,
I know, but
but
let's say
yeah.
everything went according to plan, or like you were born
Mhm.
later, you were born during Pisces time. Would your personality be different because you were born 20 days late? Or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or
I don't know.
or do you think or do you think that, you are you, this is who you would have been no matter what time you were born?
Yeah. I think that's interesting. That's well, see, okay, so it's interesting because it goes Pisces, Aries, Taurus.
Mhm.
And so my moon sign is a Taurus.
Mhm.
So it is that I don't know. That could play into it. I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah. And I'm just curious how much powers are in the stars? Like,
Yeah.
you know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah. It is interesting.
Well, and then I have, I think we have some friends that like Katarina, for instance, totally a Sagittarius. That makes perfect sense. But then I think we have other friends where it's like, I see it, but like I wouldn't have guessed that that was your sign.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
interesting to me that there's people that it's like, oh yeah, 110%, and then there's other people where it's like,
Yeah, I agree. Because I think that like my friend Stanley is a Virgo, and I'm like,
yeah, yeah,
he's like on the like brim of being um a Leo. And I'm like,
yeah, you're a Leo.
yeah, yeah, it just happens.
Mhm. Okay.
Well, I think that was super interesting. I think it's always cool to like kind of talk about like astrology and like zodiacs and stuff every once in a while.
Mhm.
But I mean, also like I've definitely learned that those are guidelines to kind of help you navigate life, but like don't take it super seriously because sometimes like they don't even like they're not even relevant with a certain person.
Yeah, which like we very much only touched the surface of this, if even that. So I
Yeah.
definitely highly recommend if you guys are interested about it, Google is your best friend. There are so many articles out there. There's so many TikToks out there. You definitely can learn a lot about yourself and your friends if you want to.
Yeah. And another app that I also recommend is called CoStar, which
Hmm.
my friend Josie on, and it gives you like a daily like what's going to happen today maybe, or what is the season of the year for you, me,
Yeah,
kind of thing.
and it's cool because it
So
can kind of tell you what to expect
right,
within like the next couple days, which is cool.
right. Cool. Well, I hope that you guys enjoyed this shorter episode. We are planning on doing that at this every other week. So
Hmm.
we'll have a longer episode, a shorter episode, longer episode, shorter episode. So trying to figure out good topics to be able to talk to everybody about, but then also like being accommodating of our work schedules too.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think that's going to work out. I think that viewers may be tired of listening to us blab for an hour plus. But
Yes.
so thank you all for your support. We appreciate it. And we will see you guys back here next week.
Yep.
Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings. All right, I'm going to stop recording.